come in and babysit him, and he'll pay. And he'll pay with toys because he doesn't have any money, and we'll work out things behind the scenes. Make sure that he pays with his latest and best toy, too, by the way. Not some burnt-out, ragged old thing he doesn't want anymore. Now she got all the bases covered. She goes to bed. She goes to prayer. Please, Lord. Is she praying for the kid to be ready or not ready? Not ready. Did he let her down? No, he's not ready to go. She said, you're not ready to go. I never have enough time. You never. Oh, how sad. And what we're going to learn today is one of the ways to make sure the kid never sees you as the source of the problem is you lock in some genuine empathy before you tell them the consequence. And then what that does is it changes brain chemistry. It puts them in the frontal cortex thinking mode instead of defensive mode. See? How sad. Well, that's why I have this nice little grocery bag. We'll just put your clothes in there. You can dress whenever you feel like it. There's no hurry. Bag in one hand, kid in the other hand, right straight out the front door. And do you know that God became part of the training team that morning? It snowed last night in Evergreen, Colorado. He's bouncing around his bare feet out there. My feet are cold, my feet are cold. And she said to me, big deal. In fact, when she said it to me, I think she put an adjective between big and deal. Fortunately, she didn't say that to the kid, but she said, big deal. Here's a kid who loves to run in the snow in his bare feet. I have to watch him or his feet will get frostbit. Today his feet are cold. Big deal. But let's go back now, based on our training today. What did she really say to the kid when he said, my feet are cold? She said, I know, but my friends don't have to go to school. Their clothes in a bag. I know. And she put him in the car, gently or with force. Gently, yes. What was she tempted to do? Yes, okay. Put him in the car. Now, did he take this lying down or go for the jugular? Oh, he's in the back seat. If you love me, wouldn't have me in the back seat of the car in my pajamas, no shoes. What did she say? Nice try. Oh, that made him so mad. He'd now pull out the rest of his tricks. He is now kicking the back of his seat. He's raging. He's roaring. He's whining. Pretty soon he's waving at passing motorists like he's been kidnapped. Then she hears a squeaky little voice in the back seat. Guess I'll have to be dressed after this. And he has. But whose idea was that? Yes, well, daycare center waiting with wild anticipation. Oh, they were ready for him. They were all ready to say, Brian, you're welcome to come in just as soon as you're dressed. Now you all take your time. There's no hurry. So disappointed. To that very day, they stand around that daycare center and they ask this question of each other. How'd that kid get dressed with his seatbelt on? But tell me, has Mom broken this cycle of anger and frustration and begging and pleading and all of that? And how did she set all those limits? She said, here's how I'm going to run my life. You figure out how to fit into it. She put a strategic training session together and she plugged the holes. Now with that, I want to change gears a little bit. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are able to come up with an immediate and meaningful consequence that will teach one of life's important lessons? How many are good at that? Don't you feel guilty about that? Good for you, you don't. See, I gave a workshop for 500 practicing psychologists in Detroit, Michigan. I stood up here and I said, how many of you are good at coming up with immediate and meaningful consequences with kids? No hands. One guy said, hey, we don't apologize for that. If you want to come up with consequences that are meaningful, you have to take a little time. It usually means several adults get together and brainstorm it. They think about the unique kid, the unique situation, and you take your time. He said, we can't do that. What if I could give you a technique that has an immediate consequence and a delayed consequence all wrapped up in one package? Would that make it better? This is what we live by at the Institute. The awareness of a consequence being on its way can serve as a consequence in itself. If you use the word try, you see, I'm going to do something about this, try not to worry about it, okay? Now, what happens? They are starting to live out a myriad of things. They're imagining what could happen, what are they going to do, and so on. And that gives us time to Get our friends to help us figure out what to do. Get ourselves calmed down so we're not angry while we deal with it. And be able to do it so that our dignity is intact and the kids' dignity is intact at the same time. Let's see this happening on the home front. Because how many of us are parents here? Okay. How many are parents but not educators? Okay, great. How many of you are parents disguised as educators? Yeah, okay, because we're all here thinking about our own kids, right? Yeah, okay. Well, let me play with you. Your name is? Sharon. Let's all behold Sharon right here, okay? Yeah, the love of my life, my 16-year-old daughter, okay? Now, isn't this the person that if I ever have to lay my life down, I'm going to lay it down for Sharon, my daughter? Because that's how we feel about our kids, right? And this daughter that I love so dearly went out tonight, and she said she'd be back at 11:30. Check this out, 2:14 a.m. No Sharon. What have I been doing since 11:30, everybody? Worrying and pacing and fretting, right? And pretty soon all this worry is turning into, I didn't hear you, anger, okay. And in 7 seconds flat, Sharon, the love of my life, is going to walk through that front door safe and sound. And she's going to get to hear all about my undying love for her, right? What's she going to hear? Where you been? I've been worried sick. No, don't you give me those excuses. I've heard every one of them. No, don't you roll your eyeballs at me. I'll slap them right off your face. Oh, okay. I heard that. You just add 3 weeks to this because I am sick and I'm... Would I ever talk to my neighbor that way, everybody? No, and I hate my neighbor. Why am I talking to her like that? I love her. Let's play it all over again. Now, I'm probably going to have to rehearse this a whole bunch of times. Call up my friends and say, here's what I'm going to say. Okay? But I'm all ready for her. She comes in. What do I say? Oh, Sharon, I'm so glad you're okay. Oh, I was so worried about you. Now, I know I shouldn't worry. You tell me not to worry, right? But when you're gone and I don't know what you're doing and I just start imagining all these horrible... I'm so thankful you're okay. But, oh, you look tired. You better get some rest, okay? Why don't you go to bed? We'll deal with this another time. And what do I say then? Let's hear it. Try not to worry about it tonight. Get some sleep, right? And she's going to say, what are you going to do? You worry too much. Now, if I feel especially vindictive, as she goes down the hall, I may be saying, now, Sharon, you give me a couple of days on this. I want to call up my friends. We're going to come up with something really good this time. That almost borders on sadism, doesn't it? But have I ganged up on her? I've now given myself space to call up my friends. Can I call a good teacher over at school and say, give me some advice? A counselor? How about somebody over at church, maybe a neighbor who works well with kids? And say, help me brainstorm this. Help me plug the holes. Because I don't want to have to do it too often. The more perfect I can do it, these little ones, the better the transfer effect, right? So I finally got it all figured out. I cannot wait to tell her what the consequence is going to be. It's on the tip of my tongue. Can't wait. And now she comes to me 2 days later. She says, Dad, I want to go out tonight. Now, what did I say has to get locked in before she hears the consequence, everybody? Empathy. Oh, this is a real bummer. That'd be great, but it's a bummer. Not strong enough to worry about you tonight. Stay home. Now, is she going to look up and say, oh, Daddy, you took that new Love and Logic parenting course, and it finally took, and oh, I bet you're proud of your new skills. Is that what she's going to say? What's she going to say? Dad is not fair. And you're going to say, I know. Yeah, but I'll never be late again. I know. Yeah, but my friends don't even have to have a curfew. I know. And how am I ever supposed to grow up if you just treat me like a baby? I know. Well, this sucks. I know. If you love me, a nice try. Okay. Well, I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to go live with my friends. Maybe I'll go live with Dad instead. What's the answer? Love you wherever. Oh, did you forget the timing? Let's hear it again. I'll love you wherever you live. Isn't that more powerful? Congratulations, nicely done. Don't you just want to go home to your kids and say, come on, kid. Have I got some tricks, right? Will this cause the kid to do some thinking? Will there be some long-term effect from this? Or would it have been better if I just jumped on her right away and grounded her? Oh, okie doke.
Coming up, how to give your kids an unfair advantage over everyone else. But right now, help me.
How is it two different parents can lay down the same punishment, and one of them is seen as the source of the kid's problem and the other one is not? Why is it some teachers can punish in a certain way and the kids see them as being mean, and the teacher next door does the same thing and the kid sees them as being their friend? So we went out to study, and what we found out was the people who seem to be able to do what we just did now lay down a legitimate, sincere empathy before they ever describe the consequence. They don't describe the consequence and then try to be empathetic, but they do it in that order. Does it kind of make sense, yes or no? Now here's the rub. How many of you naturally have an empathetic response on the tip of your tongue when your kid does something stupid? Raise your hand. No hand. One hand. You've been studying with us, though, haven't you? Okay. First hand I've seen in a long time. Yeah. Well, all over this nation, I get the same response. People say, in fact, down in Alabama, I asked that question. I said, how many of you naturally have an empathetic response on the tip of your tongue when your kid does something stupid? And one lady stood up and she said, "'Tain't natural." She said, "'Tain't natural to be that nice to a kid." And now we got somebody telling the truth. And hear this, we don't apologize for it. Each and every one of us in this room has a conditioned response built in from childhood that was created with the most powerful tool known to modern psychology, and that is a conditioned response built on repetition. And our conditioned response was what? When a kid does something wrong, get angry so that he will know how serious it is. Who did that? Who taught us that? Our parents, their parents before them. It's built in. A lot of it now is even becoming genetic memory. So please don't apologize for it. It's natural. But what if I could show you how to override it? Would that give you a lot of control? Think about what happens in a home or where parents learn how to use the empathy first. And a kid comes home and says something and they respond with empathy. What's going to happen in that home? A lot calmer place, isn't it? Now let's think about a couple of things first here. I want to set up a scenario. Here's a little kid. He grows up in a family. He makes mistakes. That's what kids need to do to learn about the real world. His parents get angry. They punish in that order. Let's hear the order. Mistake, anger, punish. Now that happens over and over and over for the first 11 years of his life. By that time, as he moves into adolescence, how does he view authority figures? As the source of his problem, right? As mean, as people you can't trust. Let's think of a kid in another home. This kid grows up in a home where he makes mistakes. The first thing that happens is the parents hit him with empathy. Oh, look at that. And then the consequence. Let's hear that order. Mistake, empathy, consequence. And that happens over and over and over and over. At 11 years of age, how does he see adult authority figures? Positive or negative? Positive. Now, is there a direct correlation between how kids see their parents as authority figures and how they see teachers as authority figures? Yes or no? Yes. Is there a direct relationship between how kids see their parents as loving authority figures, how they see teachers as loving authority figures, and academic excellence? Is there a correlation? Absolutely. That's where you give your kid an unfair advantage over everybody else. It's not when you're running interference for him and making sure he's never uncomfortable, is it? So that all kind of makes sense. But how do we do it? How do we override it? We went out to study people who could do it. And what we found out, they all had the same characteristic. Limited vocabularies when they're disciplining. Yeah, very, very few words.